that He handled different than anything else in creation, it is the garden and the man. He also identifies in the garden 2 trees. Only 2 trees does He identify, but tells us very clearly that there are many trees. Every tree. The trees identified is life and the knowledge of good and evil. But He said every tree pleasant to the eye and good for food is in this garden. Now I'm going to tell you something. This garden is not talking about earthly food. It's not talking about sustaining the natural man. In fact, the garden is for the purpose of killing the natural man. If you look with me at Genesis, back up to the 11th verse of 1, you read that God said, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, the fruit yielding, the tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. Now look with me at the 29th verse. Now out of this God says, and God said, behold, I have given you, man, every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, every tree in which the fruit of a tree yielding seed to you shall be for meat. God said, I've said, let the earth bring forth all of this, and then He says to man, this is for your sustenance. This is to take care of your natural needs. Then He plants a garden, and He puts every tree that is good for pleasant to the eye and good for food, and places that man in that position. This is a spiritual place for the purpose of sustaining the spiritual man. This fruit is the divine nature of God. That's what this garden is made up of. The divine nature of God. Had Adam eaten of the tree of life, he could have eaten from every tree in there except the one. What was God talking about? It was the sanctification process. Adam, if you just eat of life, get up tomorrow and eat of life, get up tomorrow and eat of life, get up tomorrow and eat of life, and all of the trees in the garden partake of the divine nature of God. It's sanctification. It will conform you. It will change you. In fact, we are told, and I don't know why it's worded the way it is, and I have no argument with it, but in that 17th verse of 2, it says, in the 16th, and the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. Now, there's something here that bothers me. God said, it said, and the Lord God commanded that you may eat. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. If I'm going to command you, I'm not saying, I command that you may. I'm going to command that you do. What God is saying, and you can look it up yourself, when it says that this command, in fact, the words are that God commanded that they eat. In other words, what it's saying is it is appointed that you eat of these trees, of every tree. It's appointed to you. It is set in order. I command you eat of these trees. That's why you're here. Now, the whole thing is going to be governed by, established by what you eat. That's why He commanded him to eat of all these trees, because He's saying to him, inflow dictates outflow. If you eat of these trees, that's what's going to come from the abundance of the heart. It's what Jesus said, it's what's in the man that makes him clean or defiles, and that's what He's talking about. Eat of this. You can't eat of the world and bring forth God. Partake, because inflow is going to establish outflow. Is this garden situation that I described to you, is it without precedent in the New Testament? No. Go to 2 Peter 1. In 2 Peter 1, go with me to the 3rd verse. According as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue, whereby we are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. This describes perfectly Genesis 2. Exact Genesis 2. God said in what we just read, according to his divine power, hath given to us all things that pertain to life and godliness. Well, let me tell you something. Eden, flowing into that garden, was the divine power of God. In Ephesians, the 3rd chapter, and the 20th verse, it says, now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. That's Eden flowing into you. It's in there. It is in. If you're born again, it is in there. Now, what are we supposed to do with it? Partake of it, is what he's saying. Are you with me? Inflow establishes outflow. To partake of the garden for Adam was to partake of the divine nature of God. For you and I, it's the same thing. To partake of that divine nature which God has flooded the born-again believer with. What does that mean? That means that God says to us, hey, here's what I want from you. I want you to have your mind, I want you to set aside a time where I can talk to you. If God can't talk to you, you can't know God. If you don't have a time that you can set aside, that this belongs to God, here I am. How can the Spirit, we say, oh, we're Spirit-filled and led of the Spirit. When was the last time we sat before God and listened for His voice? What he's saying is, if you will listen to me, seek me, then I can speak to you, then you yield to me and wait patiently, and I will bring forth myself. It says, pertains all things that pertain to life and godliness. He said, I put it there. Everything that pertains, everything that creation is in need of is found in the born-again believer. It's not in heaven. It's not up there. It's not down there. It's right here. And God looks at the church and says, why? Oh, why are you crying for all these things? Why are you asking me? I put life in you. Partake of divine nature. For outflow is established by inflow. Jesus said in John 7:38, out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. It's the only source that the world ever had, is man. And that has not changed. I tell you this morning. The essence of that river has not lessened, but the purity of its content has devalued it. We've altered the flow in the Church of America. God says you must partake. Well, how do we do that? He tells